Good afternoon. Today I am going to talk to you about blood, about you can say a little bit of physiology and a little of microscopic anatomy of the blood cells and the plasma. This is basically meant for nurses and those who are undergoing basic training in medical sciences other than the medical sciences. So, what is being taught for the medical graduates? So first of all, I'm going to discuss with you the functions, what functions blood has got and what does it do. First of all, is blood takes the nutrients to various parts of the body, and these nutrients include glucose, lipids, amino acids, and vitamins, minerals, and inorganic compounds like sodium, potassium, calcium, bicarbonate, chloride, etc. All these things are absorbed from the intestine and then taken to the liver, and thereafter, it's absorbed, and then finally it reaches the destination in the various parts of the body. And another function which the blood performs is taking oxygen to various parts of the body and brings back carbon dioxide after the oxygen is extracted by the peripheral tissues and vital organs included, like the brain, heart, kidneys, liver, etc. And blood also carries hormones, vitamins, minerals, whatever we have, and which are secreted or absorbed inside our intestine. And finally, the products of metabolism, like the waste products, they are excreted out through the medium of the organs like liver and kidney. The products like urea, creatine, bilirubin, uric acid, and things like that. And blood also plays a major role in homeostatic mechanism, where the equilibrium of the body interior is kept at constancy. It also distributes heat, which is generally generated in skeletal muscles and the liver. And blood itself is protecting itself. It has got so many clotting factors and mechanisms where a person does not bleed to harm, and the bleeding is stopped because of internal mechanism it has in the form of platelets and clotting factors. So the blood has so many cells inside, like the white blood cells, which have a protective function, and they fight infections and invaders and invasions by organisms by the phagocytosis, and reaches in the spot where the infection is localized. Thereafter, what you see, what is the composition of the blood? Blood has plasma, which is a clear fluid, slightly yellowish in tinge, and it has got so many proteins in it. It's a very complex solution, and therefore it has, in it, the blood has the formed elements in the form of cells, and three particular types of cells are quite important. They are the white blood cells, they are red blood corpuscles, and the platelets. And each of these group of cells perform specific functions. And blood plasma is a very, very complex solution which has got plasma proteins in it. It has got, you know, substances, both organic and inorganic, in the form of sodium, potassium, calcium, bicarbonate, chloride, and the organic substances like glucose, uh, lipids, and amino acids, and trace elements, also vitamins and minerals. Now there is a distinction has to be made between serum and the plasma. Serum is whatever you see that whenever you draw the blood, and keep it separately in a test tube. After some time, you see, say after 30 minutes, the blood gets clotted, and this over this clot, you find there is a clear fluid. This clear fluid is called serum. That means serum is something what is the fluid left after the blood has clotted and it is devoid of fibrinogen, right? And whereas this plasma has got complex group of proteins in it, and you can make out plasma. Especially, we require whenever you draw, whenever you draw the blood, and you coagulate this, you add anticoagulants to the blood when you are drawing the blood from a vein, and you collect this into a hematocrit tube, and you centrifuge it, and whatever solid contents are left at the base, because this has got a high specific gravity, so what is left is clumps and groups of RBCs, which is something around 45%. So I'll repeat again, whenever you are drawing the blood and you add anticoagulants to it and you centrifuge it at a high speed, you'll find that RBCs are lying at the bottom and the clear fluid is above, which is called plasma. And in between the plasma and the hematocrit having RBCs, there is one to two, a small layer of fluffy kind of a thing, whitish fluffy thing, which is about somewhere around 1 to 2%, which contains platelets and white cells. So, with this, I would like to say is that this gives us an indication. If you find that hematocrit is 45%, it's normal. There should be the normal of hematocrit is 45%. If it is below this, below 40% or so, that means the person is having, in all probability, he has got anemia. So, I would very much like to say that this is a very important thing to know, what is called the difference between serum and the plasma. Now, coming back to formed elements, let's take RBC, red blood corpuscle. Red blood corpuscle, as you know, is it has got a bilayered lipid wall. It doesn't have a nucleus. It is biconcave, and this biconcavity of the RBC becomes easy while the oxygen is being delivered to the tissues. It is about 7 micrometers in diameter. 1 micrometer is 1 millionth of a meter, and its periphery is somewhere around 2 micrometers. As far as the it is somewhere, whatever is how many millions of RBCs are there in one microliters. It is somewhere around 4.4 to 5.9 micromilliliters per micromilliliter. You have somewhere around 4.4 to 5.9 micro liters. The numbers are 4.4 to 5.9 million per microliters is the RBCs in blood. Hemoglobin is, see, it is a protein. Hemoglobin has got a protein conjugated. Protein is there, and its molecular weight is 64,000. And hemoglobin concentration is 15.5 grams almost, and the range is between 15 grams percent to 18 grams percent, and it is the hemoglobin HB is lesser in women as compared to men because one of the reasons is that the one of the hormonal theory is that women generally have, loss of blood at times, small quantities of blood they keep on losing during menstruation. Moreover, they have to, they lose proteins in during lactation, and they also during pregnancy also there is additional requirement of blood and proteins, no doubt about it. And not only that, one of the theories says that the HB in males is more than the women have, just because men secrete testosterone hormone, and which stimulates or promotes erythropoietin secretion from the tubular cells of the kidney. So that's why the women have lesser hemoglobin as compared to males. We have two types of hemoglobin. One is hemoglobin F, that is in fetus, and it has more easily diffusible. Oxygen gets diffused into much better than the hemoglobin A. The hemoglobin A has got, it is the adult hemoglobin. It is found in adults, and that means obviously it's after the birth of the child. Then sooner we start having hemoglobin A. Now, hemoglobin has got two components in it. One is heme part and the other is globin. Heme has got four subunits, and each subunit contains one atom of iron. And globin has got four polypeptide chains. Globin has four polypeptide chains. That is chains which are having alpha chain has got 141 polypeptides, amino acids, whereas beta chain has got 146 amino acids. So the hemoglobin within the RBC, it has the property of giving away oxygen to the tissues, and this oxygenated hemoglobin is bright red in color, and after it has delivered oxygen to the tissue, the carbon dioxide is not transported by heme, but rather it is transported back to the lungs by the globins. So each gram of hemoglobin carries with it 1.34 ml of oxygen, and therefore a person who has got 15 grams of hemoglobin in 100 ml, so he approximately is carrying 1.34 into 15, that's somewhere around 20 ml of oxygen, right? Because each gram of HB can take up to 1.34 ml of oxygen, right? So the arterialized blood, that means oxygenated blood, is bright red in color, whereas the venous blood, which is returning from the peripheral tissues towards the lungs, is slightly darkish in color. Now, next which I wanted to talk to you is what is hemopoiesis. Hemopoiesis is a process in which bone marrow takes a major role, a rather exclusive role, I can say that. And the red bone marrow contains almost all the developing stages of formed elements like RBCs, WBCs, and platelets. This all is done under the influence of growth factors. And you see the basic cell, the stem cell, the progenitor cell, or the pluripotent stem cells, which give rise to all these components. And if you draw the blood from the bone marrow and make a smear, you will find all kind of cells from the bone marrow, the formed elements, and in various stages of the development. The stem cell gives rise to, you know, is the originator of cells like lymphocytes and platelets and white cells and the red blood corpuscles. So this is the stem cell, and subsequently the daughter cells are myeloid stem cell and lymphoid stem cell, ultimately which branch out to all these cells. White cells like uh, lymphocytes, neutrophils, eosinophils, monocytes, basophils. And each of these cells have got its own characteristics. And remembering the fact that white cells play different roles, including fighting the infection, resisting the infection, and they got a very short life also. Whereas the RBCs, red blood corpuscles, has got a lifespan of 120 days. And during the process of erythropoiesis, that is the formation of RBCs, what happens is that the basic stimulus to it comes from the erythropoietin, which is secreted by the renal tubular cells, and it stimulates the bone marrow to form red blood corpuscles, and there are so many other processes required during the erythropoiesis. Erythropoietin is the main thing, and this gets stimulated, particularly those of us who are living in a high altitude area. There is a stimulus to the bone marrow to have more and more RBCs, and they have a picture something like that, as something like polycythemia. We have got more population of RBCs when there is hypoxic stimulation to the bone marrow, right? And sometimes there may be deficiency of red blood cells because of loss of blood. So then, in that case, also there is a stimulation to have erythropoiesis. What is required for erythropoiesis? You can understand that without iron, it is not possible to have proper formation of red blood corpuscles. So therefore, iron is very important element which is required for erythropoiesis, and we lose iron on the daily basis, and women require more iron obviously because of its physiological demands which are imposed on the woman. So thereafter, iron is a very important thing in the hemoglobin. It's structurally and functionally, and because it carries oxygen, right? And what is required is next after the iron is, we require amino acids, we require proteins. So any person who is having deficiency of protein, so because globin part of the hemoglobin is the proteins. So the person who has got protein deficiency, obviously he will be anemic also, even if person is taking sufficient amount of iron, or a person may be taking insufficient amount of iron but doesn't take is taking the full amount of protein. So yes, this is problematic. But in our country, because a large number of population um, are likely to be suffering from anemia, but just because of our dietary habits, because vegetarians are nutritionally as not that nutrition not that strong because of our vegetarian diet. However, I can say that because of the Indian system of mixing vegetarian food gives us enough calories and rather much more than that. So anemia, as a matter of causation, anemia and hyperproteinemia and malnourishment go side by side. So therefore, we require proteins for proper erythropoiesis. Thereafter, what else is required for erythropoiesis is sufficient quantity of vitamin B12, which is again found in non-vegetarian kind of a food. However, dairy products do have. Vitamin B12 is important in DNA synthesis and therefore maturation of RBC, and so is the folic acid. So therefore, folic acid and vitamin B12 should be given to pregnant women because the demands for more proteins and iron is there. Also, I have already told you that certain hormones also play a major role in hemophysis, like thyroxine, cortisol, and growth hormone. Our testosterone surprisingly increases the production of red blood cells because it stimulates erythropoietin stimulation. And finally, you see that RBCs, they have got a limited life period, lifespan of 120 days, and thereafter it goes into dissolution. But the life is, as such, nothing waste goes in this vast nature. When anybody dissolves, either it goes down into the grave or it goes down as ashes, those elements and atoms still are recycled in some way or the other, and nothing goes waste, right? So similarly, hemoglobin also, RBCs have got their own life, and finally they get dissolved, and heme and globin is separated. This iron, which is released, again utilized, and similarly the globin also goes to the amino acid pool, and what happens is that some part of it, the waste, which is not utilized, is excreted as bilirubin. So bilirubin is formed in the macrophages, and this bilirubin is lipid soluble, and so this bilirubin is unconjugated, and it is transported in the blood along with the albumin, and it gets conjugated with the glucuronic acid, and this is called conjugated bilirubin, and then it is excreted out of the intestine through the bile. Okay, but we may have some problem with hemoglobin synthesis because of certain congenital defects and hemoglobinopathies, and therefore this person might get some disorders like thalassemia and sickle cell anemia, and the lifespan of these RBC is shorter, 30 days. The person will be anemic, so therefore they require repeated blood transfusion, right? Now let's talk a little bit about anemia. Anemia is deficiency of hemoglobin, generally, which I already told you that hemoglobin is 15 gram per cent among males, and among women it should be more than 13, at least 13 grams per cent. So anemia, as I already told you, is due to various causes. One of them was anemia and hyperproteinemia because of malnourishment and things like that, with the deficiency of iron and proteins. And second point is that a person who is bleeding constantly, losing his blood through the piles on regular basis, person may become anemic. So these people require a proper treatment. However, those people who have got deficiency of iron, vitamin B12, and uh, folic acid, they can be supplemented and helped by the help of the B12 and folic acid and iron. And there are conditions in which there is a destruction of red blood cells because of so many parasitic disorders, like it may be malarial parasite or some other congenital disorders or even acquired disorders. So there may be hemolytic anemia because of hemolysis. And finally, I would like to say is that we have aplastic anemia. Aplastic anemia means that bone marrow is depressed either because of the drugs or radiation, or it may be depressed because of certain disorders which suppresses the bone marrow. These are the causes of anemia and should be tackled accordingly. Thank you very much.